On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the United States military base on Hawaii's Pearl Harbor. This 4-hour attack was devastating. Approximately 2,400 Americans were killed and 1,300 were wounded. President Franklin Roosevelt described December 7th as a day that will live in infamy. Americans had not felt strongly about a war fought far away and had little interest in joining the conflict. Many Americans were isolationists. Hitler could destroy Europe so long as he remained on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. The attack on Pearl Harbor changed everything. All across the United States, many young men began to either enlist into the military or were drafted. Our veteran, Vern Martin, enlisted into the military as a radio mechanic and operator, and was stationed in Langley Field, Virginia, as well as China. Let's meet our veteran.
Brookings, South Dakota, 1922. My mother was a homemaker, as were probably 90% of the women prior to World War II were homemakers. My father was a salesman for Ford agency.
So before entering the service, what did you do? Like, did you have
Went to school.
Just school?
Yeah, I was in college. I was in an ROTC infantry program. It was a land grant school. Every land grant school in the United States at that time was required to have an ROTC program. And the first 2 years of your attendance at college, you were forced to be in the ROTC program. So I was in ROTC for a year before I went into the service.
Okay, so were you drafted or were you
No, I enlisted.
Enlisted.
There was a good reason for that. I weighed 110 pounds and I stood 5'10". So I said, I'm not a Marine.
Yeah.
I couldn't swim, so I says, I don't think I want to be in the Navy. I've been in ROTC infantry for a year, and they shoot at you a whole bunch. So what's left? Army Air Corps. I enlisted in the Army Air Corps. If you enlisted before your 20th birthday, you were able to choose your branch of service. If you waited to be drafted, they put you in whatever area they needed a person. If you were a baker and they needed a truck driver, you automatically became a truck driver. Didn't make any difference. We need a truck driver. So that's somewhat different.
Throughout the course of World War II, approximately 16.1 million men either enlisted or volunteered to serve in the United States Army. Of those 16 million troops who served, 291,000 were lost during the war. There was a grand total of 61 countries involved in World War II, as well as 2 billion military men.
So after radar school, then what happened?
Well, we sat around there for a long time. It seemed like it, to me, a long time, and suddenly we had orders and were given what is called a delay en route, which means you can go home for a period of time, but then you've got to report to a different base, and the different base was Langley Field, Virginia.
So during World War II, what was like your average day?
I'm sorry, average day?
Yeah.
Lousy. You get up. You don't have to make any decisions. Every decision is made for you, and you better, by gosh, do what they say. You got your meals free, you got your clothes free, and in Sioux Falls we were on the night shift, so we went to sleep. Tried to go to sleep a little after noon, and got up at 9 o'clock at night. Had some meal, I don't know, they got all mixed up. And then from a little time after that until midnight, we listened to theory by the instructors. Then we had a break. It's about 20 25 degrees below zero. We go out to the mess hall and have a roll and some coffee. Now all the blood has gone to your tummy to help digest what you've got. Not all of it, but some of it. And then you sit in the room for another 3 hours and listen to code. You got a headset on, and there are five characters or 5 alphabet. No meaning to them. They were just 5, and you were supposed to write. Oh man, trying to stay awake was just next to impossible.
Where else did you go, or was Virginia the only place?
China.
China.
What happened was that we were in what was called a secret radar program, and this is the plane that I flew from Langenfield to China. And the reason I was not a member of the flight crew, nor was the other radar mechanic that was with me. Our responsibility was to be guards of the airplane anytime it landed, and there was no armed guard available to protect the plane.
Vern flew from Virginia to China inside a B-24 Liberator, which was an American heavy bomber. The B-24 was used by every branch of the American Armed Forces during World War II.
So when you were guarding the plane, did anything happen?
No,
Nothing
not a
happened.
single thing. I was able to sleep without any problem.
Okay. So did you form any really close relationships with anyone during the war?
Oh yeah, I still communicate with one of the radar mechanics that I was overseas with.
So while you were off duty in China, what were you doing?
Well, we would try to get in. We were fairly close to Kunming, which was a very large city. It was bursting with people because the Chinese were racing ahead of the Japanese army, and they were coming into Kunming by the thousands. So it was a bustling city, huge population. Okinawa. The powers to be had determined that in all probability the United States would have to invade Japan in order to conquer them. Just after we'd cleared the Philippines, the first A-bomb had been dropped. And by the time we reached Okinawa, the second A-bomb had been dropped. So all we had to contend with were a couple of typhoons. Really, our service wasn't needed because the A-bombs had settled the score with Japan.
So did you fly back home after the war and what?
Not a chance.
No.
I wouldn't get in one of those war-weary airplanes and fly home for all the tea in China. I don't care how long it took me to get there. I was going by boat.
So when you got back, how did you feel, and then how were you?
I felt happy as heck.
Yeah.
And of course, I resumed my studies, and my folks had moved from South Dakota to Long Beach, California.
Did you have any problems like readjusting?
No.
You just
Yeah.
it's all good. Okay. How would you say that your service affected your life?
It was an experience that I really, really appreciated and enjoyed. See, nobody shot at me. I didn't shoot at anybody. So, that makes it real comfortable. And for every fighting guy, either a member of a flight crew, a member of I'm mostly in Army, member of the flight crew, infantry, artillery, tanks, all of those guys were subject to getting shot at. And it was a very precarious situation, but I didn't experience any of that.
So what would you say is the most important thing that you've learned from your service? Or is there not one thing in particular?
Don't volunteer.
Okay. Are there any really memorable moments from
Yes.
service?
We had left Langley Field, Virginia in April, and we went down to Trinidad, South America, stopped at the Ascension Islands in the Atlantic, and then Africa. Flew across Africa down to Aden, Arabia, and then on to Karachi, which was then in India, not Pakistan, because the division hadn't occurred. Our final stop in India, and it was right at the base of the Himalaya Mountains, and it was Tezpur. Started to rain, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and me was in that thing every night. Rain. It rained, I think, for about 10 days, so we couldn't get away. Finally, it cleared. So they filled our plane with oxygen. They filled our complete ammunition for all guns. And the other ground men and I, our radar tech, were assigned to the two waist guns, which they're right here, windows opened up. And you had a 50 caliber mounted on a pipe arrangement, and it could go azimuth as well as up and down. So we didn't encounter anything, but we're in a cloud bank. We're at about 21,000 feet, and ice started to build up. So, and we're in a cloud bank, can't see a thing. We know we're over the Himalayas, and suddenly the plane lays over and goes into a dive. The guys pull it out, they're still in a cloud. We did that 3 times, and we came out at about 7,000 feet in the valley between 2 ridges of the Himalaya Mountains. So we're low on gas. We don't know where we are because our navigator had been assigned to the front turret. When he opened the windows to the turret, the air took all of his maps, and they're somewhere out there in the Himalaya Mountains. And so we have no maps. We're low on gas. We don't know where we are. So we turn on a really important radio called IFF, Identification Friend or Foe. So we're picked up by a British airfield in India, and they talk us in so we didn't have to put the plane down in a little river that was running in there. And we got over their base, and they sent up a Spitfire, which is a fighter plane, not like this. But because we'd lost one of our bomb bay doors when the plane spun, and they wanted to be sure that we were who we said we were, and not some enemy flying an American plane. So we landed, and as we were taxiing to where the plane was to stop, these 2 outboard engines cut out because we didn't have enough gas. So, I mean, it was that close to anxiety or death.
Currently, Vern is living a well-off lifestyle in Fountain Valley, California, working with the Freedom Committee of Orange County to educate students and share his stories of his experience in World War II. Vern, as well as many other war veterans, received commemorative medals such as the ones displayed on the screen. These medals could be earned for such a simple task like holding a gun. On behalf of our group, we would like to thank you tremendously for all that you did for our country. Thank you, Vern Martin.